how the world was before the creation of Devil Fruit. Gear 5 with God Haki might not be able to defeat Imu-Sama.
Wait, what?
Imu has just shown up in God Valley because Roxy's attacked him. Use this God Haki to one-shot Godling for Garland.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for. This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
Kaido and Whitebeard have come to the aid of Rox, but Rox says that there isn't much to gain by helping him here. Yet Whitebeard gives a lame-ass excuse like, I'm always drinking on your tab, bro. This is the least I could do, bro. While Kaido is just happy to use his Devil Fruit and show off alongside his idol xebec. This support by Whitebeard shows that he genuinely cares for Rox and his vision, unlike some others on his crew. And after feeling the tremendous haki of Imu, he's here to help his bro out. He then asks a great big question. What the hell are they really up against? To which xebec says that they are up against the world, as Imu surfaces on God Valley. We have heard this phrase before by the Blackbeard pirates who responded to Saturn's question as the world, the thing that they want to topple or change, and are after. The first way to interpret this is by seeing the world to mean the corrupt celestials and Imu at the top. That's why, like, it's basically the world order. That's why Rox has been against the world government who represent the current will of the planet. But Rox, knowing that Imu sits on top of the empty throne, it can also refer to him alone. If Imu is destroyed, then so are the Gorosei, who will perish without their immortality. Even the God's Knights will become much weaker and easier to handle. Furthermore, what if the three worlds or ages in the mural that read about each referred to their era's villain? And the third age's villain is of course Imu-Sama. That's why on the Harley poem it says that the sun god will destroy the world, which isn't exactly apocalyptic devastation of the planet, but the defeat of Imu, who represents the world. Furthermore, biblically speaking, Imu as the world also gives even more weight to our theories regarding Imu being symbolic to the concept of the devil from the Bible. We have seen these allusions all around One Piece, from Kuma's Bible to the God's Knights being inspired by the Templar Knights from the Christian Crusades. Now, if you look at Corinthians 4:4, the Bible literally calls Satan the god of this world who has blinded the minds of those who do not believe. In One Piece terms, Imu's deception has blinded the people from the light of Nika and freedom. If the Gorosei represent the planets, then Imu could only be Earth, as that's the only inner planet left, right? Plus, Imu backwards is Umi, which is the sea, and the One Piece world is a sea world.
Oh my god! Wow!
This revelation of Imu though answers so many questions, okay? One of which are the fruits of the Gorosei and people who have been corrupted by Imu, which we have been calling demon god fruits for a few years now. In fact, we predicted Imu having this devil fruit 2 years ago as soon as that tale was revealed. Even on our Zoro Eye video from like, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we had already explained how the eyes are a mark of possession likely wielded by Imu. But the devil stuff also reveals how the final war will actually go, what Imu's goals are, and the origins of the One Piece world itself, including how Monkey Deadbeat Dragon has the final piece to defeat Imu. For years, Oda has layered religious imagery across the structure of the celestial dragons, framing them as divine elites or gods in name and privilege. However, just as Psalms 82:6 in the Old Testament says, "Ye are gods and all of you are children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men." It calls mortal rulers gods who will always eventually fall. One Piece does this too, with Imu's divine title now turning into a hollow illusion. The gods of this world are not sacred, they are parasites cloaked in myth. Marishwa is called a holy land, a high place quite literally in the sky mirroring heaven. But even the name Marie-Joie evokes Mary, the mother of Christ, a false association suggesting purity and divinity. But we all know the Imu party goes down in that palace. Nothing pure about that, chat. Basically, the truth is inverted. The celestial dragons are no saint. Their angels of the seraphim are not divine protectors, but engineered weapons. The very iconography of heaven has been hijacked, twisted by the world government to mask the truth. That at its core, the entity they worship and draw power from is not God, but the literal devil, which this chapter proves. So when Whitebeard Whitebeard says the world will be turned upside down upon the One Piece being found, he means that the world will be set straight again. Furthermore, Imu is the ruler of the empty throne. He's not a deity of light, but one of shadow. In Abrahamic tradition, the devil is a being who rebelled after the creation of man. In Christianity, he was a fallen angel. In Islam, he was a jinn who refused to bow to Adam, claiming superiority. This same arrogance echoes in Imu and the celestial dragons. They look down on all others as insects, as lesser beings unworthy of grace. When Saturn calls humans bugs, it's not a hyperbole, it's their doctrine. Using this idea of the devil rebelling due to the creation of man, Imu's Devil no Mi suggests something far more ancient than any devil fruit we have seen. In the mural of the three worlds, we were shown a towering figure of a devil looming above a crowned king. This wasn't just symbolic, it was a contract or a soul pact. The king, in exchange for dominion and power, offered life essence or soul energy to the devil. This energy would be consumed not just from people but from the planet itself, and then came the collapse. The mural seems to hint at a moment when the world was cracked open. The devil fed too deeply, draining the earth of its essence until it erupted in volcanic despair. The molten explosion, writhing like a serpent, formed what we now call the Red Line. It is a scar or a reminder of the devil's pact and the apocalypse that followed. The serpent-like shape of the volcanic eruption aligns with the biblical symbol of evil, a snake tempting humanity and fracturing paradise. In the aftermath of this cataclysm, the second world entered an unnatural darkness. The sun god was hidden, the air smothered with ash, but nature adapted. Fishmen arose to live in the seas. Giants were born to endure the cold and starvation, and at the center of this evolution stood a tree. All of the magic and haki from the first world concentrated upon it, giving birth to the mother of devil fruits, Sunlight Tree Eve. This tree became a new conduit of the world's will, infused with the soul of the sea and the voice of its people. When those in despair wished to survive, their will became incarnate. Haki turned into fruit, and those who were too powerful to die instead became fruits themselves, like the mythical zone fruits of Nika or Sengoku's Buddha fruit. Similarly, the Devil King, the original soul-eating entity, was one of them, and centuries later, Imu Narona consumed that fruit, becoming the current incarnation of the devil, because as we know, mythical zones like Nika seek out the user that best embodies them. But to understand this devil further, we must also look at classical mythology, specifically Hades. In Greco-Roman lore, Hades ruled the underworld. His staff, a bident or three-pronged fork, it was the symbolic counterpart to Poseidon's trident. And this imagery carries forward into the modern depiction of the devil. Pitchfork in hand, Cerberus at his feet, likely inspiring the Figarlands, Hades is the archetype of the infernal king. In One Piece, Imu seems to channel the same essence. Their throne sits atop the world, yet their dominion is that of death, secrecy, and shadows. Poseidon, by contrast, was god of the seas, but here's the twist. Poseidon in One Piece is no god, she's a young mermaid, a pawn in the larger game representing the fish people. She exists not as a ruler, but as bait, a distraction while the devil pulls strings behind the curtain, which is similar to how people are led to care more about the racism between humans and fishmen, while the Celestials and Imu at the top are drowning the world and taking up all the resources as heavenly tribute. Oda is cooking, chat. Furthermore, there is one man who has known the truth and has been fighting to reveal it for decades. I'm talking about my goat, Monkey Deadbeat Dragon. From the shadows, he's been moving, not as a father, not just as a rebel, but as a man carrying a revolutionary gospel. Think about it, okay? Revolutionary army are always the ones tied to the word of God in the story, like Bartholomew Kuma walking around with a Bible like some lost apostle, or Ivankov, who was recently shown holding the book of Genesis. That's not a coincidence, but that's a pattern right there. Two of them, and then Dragon is gonna have the third book, because this isn't just a fight for freedom, this is a battle between heaven and hell. We know Ohara had discovered the truth of the world by reading the poneglyphs, ancient murals of the first world, and the Void Century. How? Well, Professor Clover and the scholars of Ohara had good relations with the giants of Elbaf, and they cataloged all of their findings into a collection of books that the Revolutionary Army now carries. And who was there when the giants saved those books? Monkey Deadbeat Dragon. Back then, just a rogue freedom fighter, but after witnessing the fall of Ohara, that's when he formed the Revolutionary Army for real. So let me put this into perspective, okay? The Bible in real life has 66 books. What if the books from Ohara were the One Piece equivalent, a complete record of humanity's creation creation, fall, prophecy, and rebirth. It was the real truth which threatened Imu's rule. The book of Genesis in this context would describe the creation of the second world. It contained the origins of the Adam and Eve tree, the great flood, Noah, and the world-shaping sin of maybe Zunisha that led to the oppression we see today. Kuma's Bible, well, I believe it's a standalone volume focused on Nika, the sun god, as those two characters have a lot in common. Nika was a Christ-like figure who brings joy, dances in the face of evil, and frees the enslaved. You can't get more Messiah-coded than that. But the final book, the one that ties everything together, would be the book of Revelation, and Monkey Deadbeat Dragon is the one who holds it. Think about what Revelation means. It's the story of the final battle between good and evil, the fall of Babylon, the return of the Messiah, and the creation of the new heaven and new earth. In One Piece terms, Babylon is Marie Joie. The Messiah is Joy Boy, who returns in the body of Luffy, and the new world, that's Dawn, the final world after the collapse of the world government. And guess what? Luffy literally resurrected in Wano with Gear 5. When he died, it came back dancing with a smile. Bruh, Dragon knows the importance of Luffy. That's why he saved him in Loketown, not just as a father, but as a revolutionary who wants to see a new dawn. We've heard about the prophecy of the dawn for years, from Odin, from Joy Boy, from the whales that awaited the sovereigns, and that prophecy, it could be the final chapter in the book of Revelation. A prophecy written 800 years ago, and the same prophecy that Madame Charlie's ancestor may have passed down. Everything is lining up. Odin's journal talks about Joy Boy's return. The prophecy lives on.
2,000 years later.
Imu-Sama himself has shown up to Elbaf claiming to annihilate everyone using the powers of a god. As we all know, Imu likely has the devil no me, because we saw that triangular Satan tail in his fight against Flame Emperor Sabo at the throne room. We can also clearly see on the mural that Imu is depicted as a devil with horns and all of that. So it makes sense that he would have the ability to possess the one who have made deals with him. That's how Imu's own immortality, which was given to him through the Ope no Mi surgery, can be transferred around to his homies. They made a deal with the devil for immortality. Now, this possession theory brings me to another Balls Deep prediction. It's very possible that Imu is actually possessing Nefertari D. Lily, because look at this picture of Gunko with a full blacked out face and everything. The vibe is uncanny. And now look at this picture of Lily. They look very similar. Imu's abilities are literally the values of the celestial dragon's given form. Furthermore, Oda illustrates Domi Reversi as also literally flipping people to their side as Tall Man, another giant, gets sent to hell and reborn as a demon. Reversi is actually a board game also known as Othello, where you play in a 8x8 grid where the goal is to flip as many discs to your color as possible in a straight line, and whoever has the most colors flipped wins at the end. While Luffy flips people towards his side by helping them, like in the case of Alabasta, Dressrosa, and most recently Wano, Imu and the world government flips them through sheer force, as evident in Elbaf through blackmail with the child hostages or literally turning them into devils. Elbaf, being the home of the giants, is going to be one of the strongest pieces on the board for the final war, and whoever flips it towards their side will win. Because just think about the Marineford War, okay? You have Ors Jr., who is an ancient island puller. He was so big that all of these big shots in Marineford, it was so hard for them to fight against him. He was the first one who allowed Whitebeard's forces to break through some of the Marines' toughest defenses. Now imagine Imu turning the giants into his pawns through their Domi Reversi powers, and they're all like Ors Jr. size or even bigger. It would be a complete shutdown of any forces. Even Monkey Deadbeat Dragon's revolutionary army couldn't handle that. So Imu being able to flip the giants to his side is the most important thing in the final war. That's what the board with the pieces showcases. As back in Onigashima, we were getting battle updates from CP0 using the same Reversi board and who would have the most soldiers left on their side. Because as strong as an individual like Imu or Luffy might be, in a war, whichever side has the most left standing ends up becoming justice and rights the next era. Just look at Joy Boy and his faction from 800 years ago. As much as we glaze him and the power he has displayed through the 800-year-old musty haki that sent even the Gorosei packing an egghead, he still lost to Imu, who had his 20 allied kingdoms. That's why Mihawk called Luffy's power to bring people to his side, to flip them into the side of light as one of the strongest powers in One Piece. Finally, if Blackbeard is also after the world, it means that during the final war, he will fight against Imu. Bro is likely the one causing havoc in Marijua right now. That's why Shamrock was called back by Imu. He seized the opening created by my goat, Monkey Deadbeat Dragon, through their siege of Marijua to strike against the world. Even Dragon is after the world, as he was the first ever character to mention the world in chapter 100 when he first appeared. Because bro said, "The world is waiting for our answer, my boy, Luffy." And to defeat Imu currently, well, they're gonna lose to Imu because it's gonna be their children who are gonna like defeat Imu later on. But to go against Imu next, it's gonna be Garp, Roger, and Rox teaming up against this devil.